Greetings to everyone out there. I decided to make another health video at the request of Courtney Toombs, an adorable young lady who just got her first job in San Francisco at Yahoo. She's very excited about, Yelp. Sorry about that, Courtney. She's very excited about that. And she's just moved out there to join my daughter, her best friend. So it's going to be very exciting for both of them. But Courtney, unfortunately, has succumbed to a condition that seems to be plaguing all sorts of people. It plagued me for decades, and everyone seems to be suffering with one form of it or another, and that's autoimmune illness or allergies, asthma, things like this. Related also, believe it or not, are autism and mental illness and those things. So off the bat, who is going to be helped by this diet of mine? To put it simply, everybody, because the things I've discovered in my research are pretty startling. It sounds crazy. I know everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say the things I say. They think I'm exaggerating. Well, let's put it this way. When I speak, I don't mince words. You and everyone else is being poisoned by the food supply. It's as simple as that. I can prove it. It's basically easy to see. So the whole purpose of the diet is to detoxify you. I'm not a supplement person. I'm not a detox person when it involves chemicals or strange sort of procedures. I go the all-natural route. To me, the right way to detox is not to actually do something special to your body, but rather to remove what was toxic to you to begin with. I know it sounds radical, and it is radical. Believe it or not, I can't find anyone. I mean, I can find people who have started autoimmune diets or this or that where it's specifically designed to remove allergens. But I've never yet encountered anywhere the idea that I'm saying, which is not just to remove toxins, but to remove everything that might be causing you a problem. So we're trying to make your body run as smoothly and efficiently and easily as possible. Because if you're in a disease state, or if you're hoping to get out of a disease state, or if you don't want to get into a disease state, your body needs to be as effective and just running as properly as possible. I mean, you would not pour milk into your car. For the same reason, you should put food that you can assimilate into your body and not foods that you can't assimilate, because you'll develop all sorts of problems that I can get into later. So who, besides everyone, especially everyone, should try my diet? Well, those with allergies, asthma, eczema, baldness, believe it or not, baldness, kidney stones, depression, mental illness, autism, ADD, behavioral problems, autoimmune disease, or any kind of chronic illness, even cancer. Any illness, whether it's heart disease, dementia, anything can be helped by this diet. I can't promise to cure things that have progressed beyond a certain point, but certainly diabetes, if caught early, can be treated. Thyroid disease can be treated. I've even heard that AIDS and really serious conditions can be treated, actually cured. It doesn't surprise me either. Okay, so what is the diet? I've already mentioned it's an elimination diet. So you're essentially going to remove anything from your diet and from your lifestyle that is toxic. So what would that be? Okay, well, hold on to your seats, because what I'm going to say is probably going to shock you. And it's this. The 5 most commonly consumed foods in the country also happen to be the top 5 human allergens. Those are wheat, dairy, corn, soy, and meat. Wheat, dairy, corn, soy, and meat. Okay, now is a kernel of wheat, or is an ear of corn, or is a soybean, or is an egg taken from your chickens in the backyard who've been pasture raised, is that going to hurt you? No. I mean, you could go ahead and have an ear of corn here or there. I just had an ear of corn for lunch. You can go ahead and have an egg from your pastured hens in your backyard. Make sure they're your pastured hens, or that you know who did it, who raised them. Not, don't trust Whole Foods necessarily to do a good job sourcing their animal feed and things like that. Okay, so why are we removing those 5? Well, the food supply has changed tremendously in recent decades, I should say. The wheat, dairy, corn, soy, and meat we eat today is not similar to what was consumed a half century ago. In their most natural states, these foods are difficult to digest. In their current forms, they are absolutely, positively toxic, and no human should go near any of them. There are a couple exceptions. In dairy, I advocate eating pure pasture butter and ghee. It could be in the future, by the way, that I find out that, oh, you can't have that. But as of now, I can't find any reason not to use it, and it certainly agrees with me. Very few things totally agree with me, so that says something. But I do eat butter liberal. I eat more butter than probably anybody you know, and I don't have a drop of belly fat, as it turns out. I don't think it's pretty clear that fat doesn't make you fat at all. I'm not saying you should gorge on fat, but it's not fat that causes weight gain, and I can get into what causes weight gain. It's basically toxicity. So of those 5 basic groups of foods, you can have butter and go ahead and have GMO-free corn that you pick up at the farmer's market or that you grow in your backyard. That's not going to hurt you either. But stay away from all the other forms of these foods, which is ridiculously difficult when you think about it, because wheat and corn and dairy and the derivatives are in everything. Every processed food has these in it, it seems. So as a consequence of this, I've gotten incredibly healthy, but I've had to basically cook everything at home, which it turns out never really bothered me, but I've actually come to love it, because the food I eat is so delicious and fresh, tasty, pure, and makes me feel so good that when I go now to a restaurant, I'm always disappointed with the quality of the food. So there's good and bad in everything, but I certainly don't suffer from enjoying my food at home. Okay, so what else are we cutting out besides those 5 major foods? Well, quite a few things. We're going to eliminate MSG and glutamate and their derivatives. There are about 22 code words for MSG. You can find them online. There are lists. You just enter MSG code word or name, and you'll find it. It's basically in everything, including things called like natural flavors and hydrogenized yeast, things like this. So you have to be really careful when it comes to MSG and the code words, and this is a huge one. If you're wondering why people have such a hard time with wheat and dairy, a big reason is the glutamate, the heavy glutamate content in those foods. Glutamate is something like, makes up, the protein in wheat is gluten, and the protein in dairy is casein. Glutamate makes up about 20% of those proteins in wheat and dairy, so it's a big percentage of those foods, and that's why they irritate us so much. Well, that's one of the reasons it irritates us so much. And the reason to get rid of MSG and glutamate is for a few reasons, but number one, they are incredibly stimulating and toxic to our neurons, our brain cells, especially in people who are sensitive, which is people with a high IQ, Ashkenazi Jews, people on the autistic spectrum, things like this. The reason that you have a high IQ is not because God blessed you with a high IQ. It's because you genetically have extra glutamate receptors. It's just a genetic freak of nature. That's it. Oxalates. This is a big category. Nobody knows about oxalates, but it's time to get oxalates out of your diet. Oxalates are mostly found in what you would call the healthy fruits and vegetables, healthy vegetables. Things like beets and spinach and kale. There are lists online that tell you the high oxalate foods. Oxalates are just a disaster. They're an anti-nutrient. They sap nutrients from your body. They're toxic, and they're especially problematic for the kinds of people I've mentioned earlier, smart people, autistic people, things like that, because we have different metabolisms. And what happens to your body when you consume oxalates in excess of what you can tolerate, which is not that much. I mean, you don't need them. They don't serve any purpose in your body. They form crystals in your kidney, so you can get kidney stones. I had my first kidney stone when I was 24, and I was a healthy, I had mental issues, but physically I was eating properly. I was eating what you would call a good diet. I was 24, I was thin, but it turns out if you have metabolic conditions that predispose you, if you're genetically predisposed to having difficulty with oxalates, you're going to get kidney stones. And in fact, it's sort of a well-known thing that people who eat large raw spinach salads can't avoid getting kidney stones. That's something a doctor will never tell you. So look up oxalates, and you don't need to go crazy. You don't need to never have a leaf of spinach again, or never have a beet, or never have kale. But just understand that you can't have too much. And there are ways you can control oxalates in food through things like boiling in water and throwing away the water afterwards. So it's easy to do. So the next food is histamine. Okay, I don't know if any of you guys have ever had a histamine response, but that's when after you eat, you're gonna feel sort of phlegmy, you're gonna get that mucus, and your sinuses could get full, or you could get a little feeling of mucus in your throat, you might get a little cough, or just a feeling of congestion. You can also have other problems, such as flushing, or hives, or itching, or migraine headaches, or any sort of problem like that. Histamines are mostly found in aged foods like aged cheese, aged meat. Seafood has some. It's basically a biological amine, so it's sort of a bacteria that happens when food ages. There are also histamines in foods that, I shouldn't say histamines, there are things called, it releases histamine in other foods. So for example, pineapple doesn't have things that produce histamine in it, except that pineapple isn't high in histamines, but it releases histamine in your body, so it's something you want to limit. There are also plenty of lists out there for histamine intolerance and things like that, so you can look up the list of high histamine foods. Also, there are things like coffee and chocolate, things like that. And again, with any of these things, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to eliminate everything. All I would suggest is take maybe the top 4 or 5 foods and say, well, those are high, maybe I should monitor that. I'm quite strict because over the years, I've done so much damage to my kid, I didn't know about it. But through the toxic food I was eating and the pharmacological poison I was prescribed, which didn't treat my mental illness at all, I damaged my kidneys. So I have to be super careful with all these things, but you don't. So just any little change you can do will make a big difference. The next class of problem foods are salicitates and aspartates. That's a mouthful, but they're basically natural pesticides in foods. Vegetables and fruit produce their own pesticides. They do this to protect themselves from being eaten by animals, which is fine for them, but it's not always great when you eat them because you're getting a pesticide in you. And you might say, well, it's natural, it's not toxic. Well, sure, it's natural, but it also stimulates your immune system. And we don't want to provoke our immune system. We're trying to keep our immune system calm and happy and protected because that's how we stay calm, happy, and protected. So look up the list of salicylates and aspartates. And again, there are things you can do here to make your life easier while still enjoying your favorite foods. Things like peeling your fruits and vegetables. See, people used to peel all fruits and vegetables before they ate it. People in the olden days knew a lot more about health and wellness than we know now. These days, nobody peels things. In fact, we're told most of the nutrients are in the skin. Well, yes, most of the nutrients are in the skin. That's absolutely right. But there is not a single person on the planet who is malnourished who's going to eat a plant-based diet like the one I'm suggesting. You simply cannot be malnourished. So you don't need to worry about getting every little last nutrient out of it. It's not going to hurt you. It's not about how many good nutrients you can take in, even though we've been brainwashed to think that. It's really how many anti-nutrients and toxins we can eliminate. So peel everything you eat and avoid the foods with heavy levels of salicitates and aspartates. In this category also is aspartame. So NutraSweet, things like that, can't have that. It's complete toxic poison. And I actually, I research health and wellness a couple hours every day. I've been doing it for a long time. But sometimes I can get very emotional for me. A few days ago, I broke down a bit when I realized that Michael's ex-wife, she passed away, she died of cancer, but she had been having 20 years of symptoms of different problems. And I was thinking about it and I was researching and I realized that it's almost certain that she basically died of aspartame poisoning and nobody caught it, nobody noticed it because no doctor is trained in any of these things for good reason. If you're thinking I'm saying it's a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy and it isn't. The whole system is rotten to the core. No doctor is evil. He's not saying, ooh, I'm going to make this patient sick. He just doesn't have the knowledge of any of this, so he can't help you get better. The next category of food that nobody will believe this one is lectins, which is beans. There are anti-nutrients in beans. In fact, this used to be so well known that in antiquity, so Pythagoras, the great thinker and mathematician, he would run in the other direction if he saw a bean, even just so much as saw it. It was understood back then to be poisonous. Beans are poison, and unless they're carefully taken care of and eaten in moderation. Ricin, the most potent toxin that's used as a weapon, is derived also from beans. There are things you can do to make it easier for you to digest beans also. So there are things you can do in all these classes of foods to make it easier. You don't have to eliminate anything. You can soak the beans, boil them first, discard the water. There are measures you can take, but in general, beans are not your friend. Then there are all sorts of phenols, artificial anything, high fructose corn syrup, added sugars, the kinds of things that you would know not to eat. Just don't eat any of them, even if it's natural. Just recently I saw Earthbound. People like this stuff, Earthbound, which is complete crap. And they say, well, it's so good for you. Well, it isn't, of course. But one of the ingredients is annatto for color, and it's all natural. They say it's all natural. Well, it doesn't matter that it's all natural. It's still bad for you. Because here's the thing. Just because a substance is derived naturally from a natural substance, it doesn't mean that it was intended for you in the quantities that are put in the product that you're having. And it doesn't mean that you should be having it every day necessarily. In other words, natural doesn't always mean good. In the previous example about beans, lectins are natural. Beans are natural, but ricin is the most toxic poison in the world. So natural does not always mean good, okay? Unnatural usually means bad, but natural doesn't always mean good. The next category is aflatoxin, and this is a very big one. Peanuts, corn, coffee, chocolate, and a few other foods are highly susceptible to a mold that can produce a fungus called aflatoxin, incredibly harmful. And this is also into the conspiratorial part a little bit. Not that aflatoxins are toxic, everyone knows that. But the problem is, part of my contention is the food supply is being purposely poisoned or compromised. And what I would say about aflatoxin in corn is this. Aflatoxin is a mold. Molds nobody really talks about this, but molds are just awful for you. Back in biblical days, there were just pages and pages of the Bible devoted to dealing with mold issues. In other words, if you had something in your house, a pot or a shirt or something that had something suspected of being mold on it, it would be taken to the priest or whomever, the rabbi, I don't know who it was back then, and the rabbi or priest would have a way to deal with it. There would be a protocol. It might have to be put aside for a week, 2 weeks to see. I don't know what it is, but they took mold very seriously, and we don't today for good reason, because the world wants to make you sick. So aflatoxin, another thing to avoid. I don't eat peanuts. I try not to eat commercial corn products because I fear that the people who are storing the corn are not going to be as careful as I am. In other words, I don't want them to throw an ear of corn in that store in, a silo, a grain silo. I don't want them to throw an ear of corn that was infected with aflatoxin and infect everything else. And that's essentially what happens. Okay, so those are basically, I'm now finished with the foods that we're trying to eliminate or reduce. Next, the non-foods, the things you can do environmentally that can help. Things like throw away your Teflon non-stick pans. I don't care how healthy it says it is, that it has a sticker and it says it's green and good for you. It's not good for you. If your pan is non-stick or if your pan is Teflon, it's bad. Safe choices are glass and enamel covered ceramic and cast iron. Those are okay. Tap water is another one. I actually drink a little bit of tap water. I drink a little bit of spring water, but you don't want to be getting all of your water from tap water because it's really, really bad. You know about the tap water in Flint, Michigan? Well, every tap water in America is severely compromised. Some so much that you couldn't even believe it. This is thanks to all the fracking and all this nonsense, and fluoride, actually, that's added to the water. People don't understand the fluoride issue. People think it's good for you. It serves no purpose. It's not good for your teeth. And even if it were good for your teeth, it wouldn't help for you to drink it. It has all sorts of terrible qualities, including latching on to the minerals in foods you eat, so that if you drink some water, tap water, while you're eating your food, the fluoride in the tap water will latch onto the nutrients in your food, making the food not bioavailable for you, so you won't be able to get any nutrient from it. Other things you can do are throw away the aluminum baking sheets. Aluminum is rotten, terrible stuff. Throw away your antiperspirants. Throw away your hair dyes, your beauty supplies. Trust me on this one, I'm not a beauty queen or anything, but I'm 46 years old, I look okay, and I can tell you this, you will look infinitely better if you take away things from your life than if you add them onto your face or body. Your health will make you beautiful. Trust me about this. Everyone is beautiful. Trust me if you take care of yourself. Another thing that's important, especially for vegetarians, as you can probably tell, this diet is heavily vegetarian or all vegetarian. You can do it as much as you want, but I don't think meat is a great idea. Another thing doctors won't tell you, vegetarians have to be very careful to monitor their copper levels. Plant protein sources, things like hummus, soybeans, sesame seeds, things like this, all sorts of beans and things like this, are tofu, tempeh, really, really high in copper. And what will happen is people who are switching to a healthier lifestyle, almost all of them become copper toxic, which is a disaster. I suffered from it. I'm still trying to detox from it and doing a pretty good job with it. But especially if you're, by the way, redheaded or you have auburn hair, we're called copperheads because for some reason, we latch onto copper like crazy. So a very important thing, by the way, if you're having too much copper, I'll just tell you some of the bad things that'll happen. Number one, your B12 is going to just collapse. It'll eat up all your B12. It eats up all your zinc. So you're going to feel depleted. You're going to feel low energy, but at the same time of feeling low energy, your brain will be totally revved, running a mile a minute. Your brain will be going. So you'll have insomnia, irritability, anxiety. You'll be fakakta. So watch out for copper again, especially if you're getting healthy. It's healthy people that have to worry about copper toxicity, not unhealthy people. Okay, so what are you supposed to eat now that I've told you everything you can't eat? Well, you should eat locally grown, in-season fruits and vegetables and grains. Why locally grown and in season? You probably hear the big craze, local, local, local. Well, here's another thing that it feels hard to believe because it's so conspiratorial, but it's true. Produce that's picked when it's not ripe are toxic. As amazing as it sounds, they are incredibly high in salicylates. It makes sense. The plant is not ready to be picked. The thing is not ready to be eaten. So the plant has very, very high levels of salicylates, those things that are trying to keep predators away. So if your produce is not local and in season, you're not going to get any nutrient out of it. In fact, well, you might get some, might have some vitamin C, it might have some of this mineral or that, but in total, your net is going to be minus because you're going to have so many anti-nutrients that it's not even going to be worth your while to eat it. I know it sounds like a shocker. Back in the old days, if you look 100 years ago, what did people do in the winter? Well, they ate cans. They didn't eat that. You know, they had root vegetables, winter things, but they didn't have fresh fruits and vegetables. And unfortunately, even though we look around us and everything seems so modern, we're in the same boat. We cannot have fresh fruits. We cannot have real fruits and vegetables in the winter. There's just no way to do it. So locally grown, in season fruits and vegetables that are purchased at your farmer's market, ideally, or grown at your house, or grown by somebody that you know. You have to know this because, I'm not trusting Driscoll's or things that are grown in Mexico. I don't know. And not only that, I know if it's picked in Mexico, it's not going to get here in time for me to know that it was picked when it was ripe and fresh. So local, in season, and then supplement your fruits and vegetables. Oh, and by the way, about the fruits and vegetables, I'm sure you've heard all the crazes about raw this and raw that. I'm not sold on the raw thing. I think the primary goal should be when you're eating is to make your calories as easy and your nutrients as easily accessible to your body. Cooked vegetable is easier to digest than raw. Okay. The problem with cooking food is protein. Protein turns rotten when it's cooked, so that's really the problem. Cooking a vegetable will do nothing to it. It might reduce some of the nutrients in it, but again, we don't care about reducing the nutrients because we're eating so many nutrients anyway. You're going to get more than enough. And just like in everything else in America today, people get too much of everything. People are not nutrient deficient because they're not getting enough nutrients. People are nutrient deficient because the things they're eating are sapping nutrients from their body. So what do I supplement my fruits and vegetables with? Well, I use rinsed and boiled white rice, not brown rice. Why white rice? Well, brown rice, the hull of the rice has a lot of anti-nutrients, a lot of difficult things for your body to process, and a lot of pesticides and things from the environment that you don't want. A lot of these salicylates, things like that, the natural pesticides. So you want rinse it first to get off all the gunk. You can rinse it until the water runs clear. Boil, and I use bottled spring water to cook the white rice, but I don't know if it really matters what you use. Other grains, I can have a little bit of millet, some puffed rice, some rice cakes, potatoes are not a great idea because the oxalate count, but I love potatoes, and you can greatly reduce the oxalates simply by peeling and either soaking them for like an hour in water or by boiling them for a couple minutes in some water before you can either, just boil them and eat them, or boil them and then cook them in the oven, or however you'd like that. What about oats? People like oats. Oats are very high in oxalates, among other anti-nutrients, so I tend to stay away. I'll have a little here and there, but it doesn't make a big part of my diet. And about the percentage of raw and cooked, I don't think it matters that much. I shoot for 1/3 raw and 2/3 cooked, but I don't think it matters. The reason you want raw, the reason raw is important is, and by the way, I don't mean all raw, but that's some raw with each meal. You should have some raw with each meal. Is raw foods have enzymes, live enzymes in them that help with digestion. And if you're eating a bunch of cooked food, and if you're eating a bunch of cooked food and you have no raw food with it, you're not going to have the enzymes you need to break down your food. Okay. And then why? Okay, so why are we torturing ourselves with this diet? Well, first of all, I don't feel tortured. If you clean up your diet and start eating only the things your body was meant to eat, you're going to feel like $1,000,000. You're going to think clearly. You're going to have energy. You're going to have a really high sex drive. If you're a guy and if you're not able to perform, or if you have a poor sex drive, that's a problem. And if you go to a doctor, he's just going to give you a boner pill, but that's not the solution. If you're under age 70 or 75, you should be able to have normal erections, and you should be able to have a good, obviously as you get older, your sex drive goes down, but it should still be there to some extent. If it isn't, that's a problem. That's a symptom, that's a problem. You want to have it fixed. Another reason for this diet, you might have noticed, it's exceptionally low in protein, because in addition to not eating meat, I advocate against the vegetarian protein sources like soy and beans and nuts because of their high anti-nutrient content. So you might say, well, where's the protein coming from, and aren't I going to waste away? Well, just the opposite. You're not going to waste away at all. Your body, believe it or not, this has been everything in nutrition science has been a total fraud and a lie. Your body doesn't require any whole animal proteins or even plant proteins at all to live. The protein content of just normal fruits and vegetables and rice, in other words, the protein content of white rice and broccoli, isn't different than the protein content of breast milk. We as human adults are consuming so far in excess of the protein that baby humans need. Babies who are at their max growing, their brains are growing fast, their bodies are growing fast, they don't need a lot of protein. If they don't need a lot of protein, you don't either. What's another reason to cut down on protein? Well, as I mentioned before, I have kidney damage from a life of eating the wrong things and taking pharmaceutical drugs. The kidneys are where your metabolism basically is centered. You want your metabolism in good shape. If you want your metabolism in good shape, you need your kidneys in good shape. And your kidneys are strained by protein. So you want to keep your kidneys running smoothly. There is absolutely, not only is there no need for dietary protein aside from the little amino acids you get from vegetables and white rice. I mean, anything above what your body needs is going to be hard on your body to eliminate through your liver and through your kidneys. So why not give them the easiest job you can? Also protein, a low protein diet is very protective of your immune system. And the reason we want to protect our immune system is because cancers and autoimmunity and all these things are really immune system dysfunctions. So we want to keep, our immune system does not like to encounter proteins in our diet because it confuses them with our protein, our meat, and we start attacking ourselves. Okay, so what are the benefits of this diet in addition to health, good health? I've already mentioned you're going to eliminate, reverse all sorts of degenerative diseases and autoimmune diseases and cancer and anything. Infectious diseases, it doesn't matter. You're going to have easy, effortless weight loss. You can eat as much as you want. Why can you eat as much as you want? Because you're not going to have any cravings. Give this diet a month's time and you will not have a single craving. How can I promise that? Well, because it turns out, and this is something your doctor will never tell you, your nutritionist will never tell you, a dietary craving is the surest sign that your body is toxic, that substance is toxic to your body. So now you know if you crave something, it means it's bad for you. Your body shouldn't have it. And the reason is pretty interesting for why this happens. Basically, I don't know if you're familiar with how allergies work, but you'll have an antigen, meaning a substance that's irritating your body, a foreign invader, to which your body creates antibodies, things to attack the antigen. Well, your body produces antibodies when you eat a toxin. Now, once you've eaten your toxin, you still have these antibodies floating around your body. Those antibodies that are floating around your body they cause discomfort to your body, and your body doesn't like that discomfort. And one way to get rid of the extra antibodies, because they latch on to the antigen, to the actual substance you ate that was an allergen, is to eat more of the allergen. Because when you consume now more of the allergen, the antigen will lock on, and your symptoms will go away. So, as paradoxical and odd as it sounds, if people list the top 5 foods they crave, those are the top 5 foods that are toxic to them. As strange as it sounds. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about my diet. I have no idea what to call it. I was thinking, well, it's an elimination diet, so maybe I should call it SlimNation Elimination, something like that. But I guarantee you'll be feeling terrific. I'm here all the time on Facebook, and I'll help you. No matter what, give me a call, no matter what it is. Message me with any questions. I'm happy, thrilled to help. The only thing I ask in return is that you pass on this information to the next person, and hopefully, even though doctors are not equipped to get us healthy, hopefully we at a grassroots level can get ourselves healthy. Thanks again. Bye.